Hello, and welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. Today, I'm going to share with you some information about something we all need to do, and that is how to recognize and identify the toxic people in your life so that you can either remove them from your life or at least minimize your contact with them so they're not able to drag you down and keep you from reaching your goals and where you should be in life. So come on, let's talk about it, shall we? The first and perhaps most important thing to evaluate when determining if a person in your life is toxic or not is how do you feel when you are around them? How do you feel in general? And specifically, how do you feel about yourself? Do they encourage you? Do they lift you up? Are they kind of the wind behind your sails? After you've been around them for a period of time, maybe just a few minutes to maybe a few hours, do you leave feeling better than when you met with them? Or do you leave feeling so bogged down that it takes you a long time to buoy yourself back up after having an encounter with them? I had some people, they're no longer in my life, but I had some people that every time I got with them or spoke with them on the phone, they engaged in what I call projectile verbal vomiting. In other words, they would just spew out all of this stuff, everything negative that was going on in their life. They would talk about, anyone who'd mistreated them. They went back and talked about their past, people in their past who'd harmed them, but it was always negativity. And I could feel myself, and at the time I didn't necessarily identify what it was, but I could feel myself as I would listen to them or be around them kind of start to sink lower and lower and lower spiritually, emotionally, and I would just feel exhausted when I left them. They drained the life out of me. While there are other people in my life, and one of those people is actually Diane from Cultivate Life. And whenever I'm around her, I just feel better. I was describing it to someone in discussing this video and talking about what I'm going to be sharing in this video today. And I was saying, sometimes when I'm around her, I feel like, how you have a roast and it's all tied up, but when you cut it, it kind of just flounders, it's all spread out. Sometimes I'm just so frantic and have been doing so much. I've been around her and I feel like that. Well, after being near her and talking to her for a while, it's so soothing. It feels like she's taken and tied me back up so I'm all together again. And do people do that for you? Again, how do you feel about yourself when you're around them? And how do you feel in general when you're around them? That's the number one thing to evaluate. Number two, does this person only reach out to you when they need something? And it could be money, but it could be other things. It could be, do they reach out to you when they need information? They need guidance. Do they only reach out to you when they need your time? And that's probably your most valuable resource, when they need your time and they need to just vent. Do they ever contact you just to check and say, hey, how are you doing? How are things going with you? How can I help you? Is there anything you need? Is it a one-way relationship where you're doing all the giving and they're doing all the taking? That's a sign of a toxic person. Number three, have they become entitled, or do they demonstrate a sense of entitlement to what you have? In other words, sometimes when you do something for a person over and over, they become, I don't know how to say it, they develop a sense of that you owe that to them. In other words, well, you have it, I don't. You've been doing it before, why are you stopping now? How do they respond when you say no? If they call and ask you to do something, you say, no, I'm sorry, I just can't do that this time, or I can't do this from now on. I'm not in a position to do it. Do they try and shame you? Do they say, well, you know what, it wouldn't cost you that much, or you can afford it and you know I can't? And my thought has been, when that has happened to me, well, how is that my responsibility? But they try and make their problems your responsibility. They try and guilt you into doing what they want if nothing else works. Again, that's the sign of a toxic person. And I bet there are a lot of folks out there listening to this video who have some people out there who've done this to you. And I am telling you, don't let them continue doing this, because it will never, ever end unless you put a stop to it. I think we're on number 4. Do they celebrate your successes? Are they really happy for you and have a sense of profound joy when you succeed? Or do you sense a latent or an underlining feeling of envy or sense of envy coming from them? Do they take little snide pot shots at you to minimize what you have succeeded in? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're being recognized for something. You're getting an award for an achievement, and they say to you something along the lines of, oh, congratulations, that's fabulous. Boy, it sure does help knowing someone on the selection committee, doesn't it? You know, they make the kind of statements that infer that your accomplishments or your achievements weren't because of your hard work or your abilities or your talents. Instead, they suggest that the only reason you've succeeded is because of some external factor that has nothing to do with you, or that it was just luck. And people like that really have a jealous spirit. They're trying to say, you don't have any more ability or talent than them, but for the fact that you had this good fortune, they could have been as successful or more successful. And you know, I've had a few people like that since I started YouTube, but they're no longer in my life. And I would suggest to you that anyone that minimizes your accomplishments and suggest rather that it has nothing to do with the hard work that you've done and the effort you've made and maybe your talents, anyone like that is toxic. Number 5, are they always talking trash on folks? I don't mean talking about people who have harmed them or who have done something to them or they have a reason to be angry at. I'm talking about just anyone and everyone. Sometimes people they don't even know, haven't even met, but they're talking so much, we call it ish, I'll just say ish on them. You know, if they're doing that to other people, you can believe they're talking about you when you're not around, because that's in their nature. That's their character. That is who they are. They are toxic folks. Number 6, and the last one that I'm going to address in this video, is do their actions match their words? Well, let me give you an example. Do they say, oh, you know, I'm a Christian, I love the Lord, and they're going on, but they behave like the devil incarnate? Oh my goodness. Or more specifically, to your relationship with them. Do they say they love you, they support you, they want your success, but they're never with you and available to celebrate with you? I'll give you an example in my own life. I bought a house, my first house that I bought on my own after I was divorced. And I was so excited to show it to a particular friend who was, I thought, a good friend. And I kept saying, oh, you've got to come see this house. I want to show it to you. And I was so excited. A month went by. 2 months went by. 4 months went by. It was almost 8 months that went by before they came out to see it. They always said, oh, I'm so busy. I have this. And mind you, they only lived about 20 minutes from where this house was located. And I asked them one day, I said, you know, you say you're so excited for me, but but you've never come to see the house. And I said, if you had bought a house, I would have been so excited. I would have been right there to see it and to celebrate it with you. I said, how would you have felt if it took me 8 months to go look at your house? You know what they said? Oh, you would never do that because you're not like that. And a bell went off in my head, and I thought, wow, you're right. We are very different. And you know what? That's not the type of person you need in your life. They are toxic. Maybe on a smaller level, but still toxic. You know, if you have any of these kind of folks in your life that you have removed, or that you're evaluating, trying to figure out how to separate yourself, let me just say this. It is hard if they've been in your life for a very long time, because they're kind of part of your fabric. It may not be a good part of the fabric of your life, but they are. But sometimes, you know, you have to rip that fabric apart and move on. And I would encourage you to do that. But share, if you have any experiences like this, share them in the comments if you would. And I just hope your journeys are filled with joy and blessing, and that you don't have toxic people in your life, or if you do, you're able to gradually, little by little, separate yourself from them. Love you all, and I'll see you next time.